Today, I welcome Jen Mitchell, a true pioneer and visionary in the field of family law and divorce remediation. Like so many things Mystical Sisterhood, we invite you into a space of reconsidering what you thought you knew to be true about divorce and relationship completion, whether you have experienced it yourself, know someone who has, or maybe experienced it as a child of divorced parents. Jen brings crystal clear wisdom and application to her own process of assisting couples and families. This conversation is about divorce, but also the new paradigm of truth surrounding where we are being called to be with ourselves as individuals and as a collective serving the awakening of humanity. So let's dive into the episode. Welcome back to Mystical Sisterhood. I'm your host, Maureen Spielman, and today I'm joined by Jen Mitchell. She is a family law attorney, a mediator, coach, and is the CEO of Solace Divorce Mediation. Today's episode will span Jen's former and current work as an attorney, her study in the field of consciousness, personal growth, and awakening, and how those concepts apply to her work and home life. Through this portal of Mystical Sisterhood, I love to bring in new perspectives on the shifts occurring in different areas of our lives as we've known it. And as I just said to Jen, the shattering of paradigms, the true shattering of the ways we used to hold things, look at them, and not even know we were conditioned, and offering new perspectives and more conscious awareness to our relationships. And Jen's specialty is taking her clients through their own awakening and often divorce proceedings. So I will just leave my introduction at that and say, welcome to you, Jen. I think it's going to be a really rich and expansive conversation today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
Yes, I
So
am
excited
too.
to be here.
So we were introduced by a mutual friend, which I always love, that the coming together of two individuals who used to be in the community of Oak Park. You were
Yes.
not far from me, yet we still haven't met in person.
Yes.
But the fact that you can have a soulmate or a soul sister that you haven't even discovered yet, she might be your neighbor or run a business in town. But the beauty of that, and can we keep the awe and the wonder around that alone open so that we can know that these people, these soul mates, will come to us sooner or later.
Yes. And that was true with us. Like we were first introduced, and I feel like we each had to go through our own journeys until
Yes.
this happened. And I feel like
Yes.
the timing of this is just, of
Hmm.
course, so divine. It's just
Yes.
perfectly timed in perfect alignment. And that's what I've
Yeah.
been thinking about leading up to this time together with you. I was like, oh, it's just so magical. It's
Yeah.
everything is so magical.
And let's say a note about that. When we were introduced, it was a year and a half ago after I launched the podcast, probably a few months in, and we emailed, and it was, I don't even know if there was a completion or a decision or anything around that, but it kind of like floated out into the ethers. And then you came back and said, "Oh, Maureen, do you want to talk now?" And then that was the divine timing where you and I had grown in my work here, you had grown in your work. And
Absolutely.
so we weren't meant to record a year
No.
plus ago. It was meant to be the now. And what
Yes.
we're finding is the fall of 2024. So let's go back. You became a lawyer. What were you, out of undergrad? And what did you see as a
And
vision for yourself at that
yes.
time?
So I went to law school. I thought I was going to help people and I was going to make a lot of money. Those were the two things that I went
Hmm.
into law school thinking. And then I graduated in 2006. I followed the path of the program of you go to law school, you work in a law firm, you work 60 plus hours a week, you bill, you do all the things. And I was in that program and I was doing all of the things as a litigation attorney for the first 9 years. And I didn't love it. Looking back on it, I didn't love it. I found it very stressful and very destructive. But even now, looking back on it, I remember I would like grab my in between my thumb when I was in court. Even I didn't even know what
Mm.
that was, but it's a pressure point and it relieves stress and it calms you. So even when I was in that system, I just feel like I was trying to do things to get out of that system. And the greatest gift for me were my children. I had 3 kids in 39 months, just like bam.
Wow.
Yes. And when they came, just as I think we all know, our children are our greatest teachers. They showed me that the work that I was doing as a family law litigation attorney was destroying other people's children. And it was destroying families. Had this really negative ripple effect on the world. And so that happened in June of 2014. And I still remember it, even though I didn't understand energy the way that I understand it now. I still remember it was an overall just body awakening. It was my mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, bodily selves that all were just activated. And then I remember I received a message that told me there has to be a better way to do this. There just has to be a better way to get a divorce. And that has been my passion project. That next week, I referred all of my litigation cases out. I became a holistic health and wellness coach. And then, then I started Solace. That was like the seed of the birth of Solace. So it's been 10 years of really mindfully figuring this out. I'm like, okay, how can we do this? How can we use something that is so dark and so hard as a vehicle to grow and empower people, as opposed to a vehicle to destroy and scare people? So
I love that, though. It's by divine design
yes.
that you had to go through those really difficult times, it sounds like. But how beautiful 10 years ago you awoke. And so I'm hearing you say you listened to that message. And would you say, how did you know that that was a truth that you were meant to follow?
I just felt it, I think. And again, my kids reinforced it, because at that moment I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I'm not helping people. Like, I went into law school to help people. I'm not helping people. I'm actually making people's lives really stressful and just really gross. And then it was my kids. It was seeing in my children and realizing, you know what, I don't want my legacy with my children to be them growing up, seeing their mom doing this job, like playing this part and doing this role and being in this system that is just broken. It's just fundamentally broken. You know, now the place that I'm at now, Maureen, it's very different than 10 years ago, but
Absolutely. Yeah, you're
you know,
lifetimes away, right? Lifetimes
oh
from
my
where
gosh.
you were. I can see you shifting. I can see that younger version of you 10 years ago shifting. And I always love that word alchemy, alchemizing all the things that had led up to that point.
Yeah.
And were you also seeing at the time, because I think a lot of people are still working in systems. And when I talk about systems and existing systems, you're referring to the legal, the law system. I think about educational systems. I think about hospital systems. Did you just know that your truth also was that your work was not meant to be done directly in the system, but you had to extricate yourself from it in order to honor yourself and really hold yourself with reverence?
Over the path, I did. But
Okay.
at that moment, I didn't. And I never even thought of, when you said that I listened to that voice, I never even gave myself, I feel like
Yeah.
that was such a
Mhm.
beautiful space, you know, and I did listen to that. And at first I didn't even know. I just followed it so diligently. And it was like my whole body, it just rejected. It was amazing. It was basically like, I cannot do this anymore. I just gave all of the cases away. And I didn't really know. Like, when I first started it, I didn't really know, but I took that holistic wellness life coaching course. And when I was doing the course, because I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to be an attorney. Maybe I'm just supposed to be a life coach. And not that, I mean, that's amazing, right? Like, help empower people and live their best self. But when I was in the course, I remember thinking, I'm like, wait, then there was another like light bulb. I was like, wait a minute, like, people that are going through divorce are really low.
Mhm.
They're at a really low space. And maybe I could start bringing in some of these principles to help them feel better. So I still remember the first mediation that I did. And I'm dear friends with the feminine energy part of it, but they were so beautiful. And I just remember it was like, and you know this just in your journey, I'm sure, but like, it's like the first time you're kind of like showing the new you, and like, we're going to do this a little differently. And the whole like woo woo, or, whatever negative, I just feel like woo has a very negative connotation to it,
Mm-hmm.
like very dismissive, but they were both very beautiful and very open to it. And I look back now to the narratives that I started with, of like the four bodily selves and like breath work and meditation, to now.
Mm-hmm.
It's so different.
I believe too that when we begin a new line of work, we often use a script
Yes.
because we're learning as we're going.
Yes.
And I did that in the beginning of my coaching. And I would, in
Mhm.
full transparency, I would sit with first clients and have a framework of how the session should go by my side. And I needed that for my safety and security. But I know your journey has been one of deep commitment to your own growth and transformation. It wasn't just about your clients and everyone else who needed to change in whatever way. They don't need to do anything, right? But it
Yes.
was about who you were becoming, and that deep commitment, consistency of commitment, compassionate commitment, all those things that I think probably all these years later, it's embodied in you. It's like breathing, I'm sure.
Yes. And for
Hmm.
you too. I feel like that is the journey and path of like when you're find yourself in the system. Like I was in that courtroom litigation system with all of the rules, and I don't
Yeah.
love rules. I think
Yeah.
that's another reason I became an attorney. I don't love rules. And there's so many rules in that system. But I think that exactly what you just shared. It's this deep commitment. But I think even before the commitment, it's a belief, having a belief in yourself of, okay, I don't feel right in this space. It doesn't feel good to me.
Right?
I want to find something that does feel good. And I love that space. And I love to surround myself with people who are in that space of getting out of that, the system, we could call them cages, just like these ways of being that are so tight and so strict, and then flowing into a space of figuring out who they are. Like, who
Yes.
am I and what do I want and what do I believe in? And what type of impact do I want to make on this world? And I
Mm.
think that's where all the amazing use is in
Yes.
that journey of self of, okay, what am I going to do? And getting rid of that, realizing I don't need that. And like you just shared with it when you started coaching and
Hmm.
having that script.
Hmm.
And I did the same thing. Like I
Yeah.
did the same thing because it's new, it's different. And now, where
Yeah.
you're at now
Hmm.
and where I'm at now, it's very much, it's become not only a belief and a commitment, but it's a full faith and trust in myself, and
Love that.
knowing that I am being guided, knowing that it is going to flow through me, and I'm going to share exactly what needs to be shared and listen in the way that I need to,
Mm.
see things the way that I need to see them. And
Mm.
yeah, it's just this beautiful space,
It,
connection with people too. I feel like when we're out of that, we can actually move into a space of connecting and
hmm.
really listening and learning from one another. And I always share with my clients, you're in this space, this mediation space, because you're talking to one another. If you were in the
Mm.
courtroom space, your attorney would be doing all the talking for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
You wouldn't be able to say anything, and then a judge is making all of the decisions for you. So it's very disempowering in the sense that you don't get to speak your truth, you don't get to make your own decisions. But in the mediation space, what I love is they're both learning things from one another in their own soul's growth and evolution that I have no idea
Yeah.
of knowing. And I
Hmm.
always tell them, I wish I could be like this magical little fairy that tells you, you're going to learn this and then this during this journey, and it's going to change your life in this way. But we can't. Just like you were sharing
Yeah.
earlier, it's
Yeah.
not our space, it's the person's space. But it's so beautiful to witness and to feel, and to just feel people opening up in different ways that I know in the other system they wouldn't be afforded that opportunity.
Mm. So I'm hearing you say too, when you sit with people, when you work with them, you create a container of safety and really love.
Yes.
And we'll talk about like shifts in consciousness because that's bigger. And so maybe as an
Yes.
add on in a little bit.
Yeah.
But the old system was very dualistic and the right and the wrong and you should and I'm sure the list is forever long, and then you shift into the space you've created,
Mm-hmm.
one where everything is in acceptance, there's no judgment, there's probably
Yes.
some like some new rules you play by that are very intentional, crafted, and compassionate. But what an invitation. And I would imagine that the people who come to you are there, it's just perfect. And yeah, how have you seen when you look at, your Solace divorce mediation, when
Mhm.
your company and everything, or your business, how you've talked about a little your personal transformation, what are you seeing happening even in society and culture around the work you do? And is there a shift in the support for it or the energy around it?
Yes, yes. Oh, thank you for asking that. And it's so interesting because I've been talking about this a lot to like my medicine family because I have noticed a big shift. 10 years ago when I started doing this, I remember the consultations they were more focused on like mediation is a real way to get a divorce. It's just the same rules as in court, same Supreme Court, same governing law, same documents that need to be done. It's the same. It was more like that, like letting people know that it was real.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm finding, Maureen, the conversations are going in very different spaces at the initial consultation,
Yeah.
talking more about like soul contracts and
Mm.
being on your own journey of self and how everyone is presenting exactly as they should, exactly when they should,
Yeah.
and how they're mirrors for you to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And people are more
Cool.
open to it. They're like so open to it, which I find, of course, being in this space and you're in this space as well, I find it to be so exciting, like just so exciting that people are open to hearing it. And what I'm thinking and what I'm tuning into is that I don't think a lot of people have access to this
Yes.
information. And now I'm coaching my clients and I'm like, it's a tiny little shift in the ways of being and the language that's used. And just like a little shift in how we're seeing things, as opposed to what you were just saying, there having to be a right or a wrong or a good
Yeah.
or a bad. We're just going to not focus on that anymore. And we're just going to make
Mm-hmm.
a little shift and it will feel really good to know that there is no right and there is no wrong and there is
Mm-hmm.
no good and there is no bad. It just is what it is. And whatever it is amazing. And so I'm feeling in the mediation space and I love that you were tuning into like what the sessions are like because it absolutely is I always share with my clients, this is a sacred space. It's a
Right.
very safe container where you can speak your truth and you can be vulnerable and there's no judgment. And again, there's no right, wrong, good or bad. It just is what it is. And of course, behind the scenes, I'm like lighting sage, Palo Santo, and I always have my chakra incense and my crystals everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they don't know that part. But I also have a client handbook. So I have a legal client handbook because it is a legal process with divorce. So that is just letting them know that. But I also have an emotional one. And that's the one that I always focus on strongly with them. It's like, just try different things in there. Go outside and do this throat chakra meditation so you can really connect to your inner guidance and truth. And things like that, people are like open to. They're open to it now. So I do feel, and that's
So cool.
Goes back to the beginning of this conversation with you. It's, of course, we didn't talk a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Of course we didn't, because it wasn't where it is now. And I do feel there's this like massive, people call it an awakening, and that's a beautiful way to explain it. But there is this massive shift that's happening.
Okay.
And I'm feeling
Yeah.
more people coming into the Solace space. And of course, everyone who comes to Solace is attracted to the vibration of Solace. And it's a very unique type of way to get a divorce right now. I do believe it's going to be the new way to get a divorce moving forward, just everywhere. It's been beautiful. It's been beautiful to connect with people the way that I am now, because it's a whole different, and I've even included now coaching, like 2 coaching sessions, one-on-one as part of their journey, just to like help make sure, like, how are you doing? Like, do you want to talk about anything with your breathwork session or, whatever it might be?
I'm sure. And I think that people crave that. They desire it. They want it. They feel so heard and validated when you provide that. I'm wondering how you've seen individuals, or there's 2 individuals, but their ancestral lineage and what we carry from ancestors present itself within your work.
Oh my gosh, I love you. You are just so in tune. And it's amazing. Again, it goes back to the timing of this call with you. It's just, yes, 100% yes. And it's interesting because that has come up. I have felt it throughout, but now I'm starting to talk about it. And there's one couple that I'm working with right now that I've had this conversation with both the masculine and the feminine energy of opening space for them to think about and tune into. Like, I always give them homework assignments, but the homework is like, do your financial disclosure, or like take your co-parenting course or things like, and then I'll ask them other things, go in nature and tune, connect with nature and tune into your own inner guidance. But recently, yes, that has just been a message that has been coming through so strongly for me, Maureen, just in my own life space, and connecting with other people too, just the power of that generational, the lineage beliefs and ways of being, and talk about like the systems that we were talking, the legal, the education, the healthcare, all of those systems. But those are the beliefs that we use to navigate our whole entire life. And they were created by the ages of 7 to 9 years old, and they're not ours.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they don't feel good, but people are doing those things. And when we're talking about divorce, I mean, seriously, what is your belief system on love? What is your belief system on marriage? What is your belief system on parenting and family and divorce? It's all of those lineage beliefs and narratives and ways of being come to fruition during divorce. I mean, it's just
amazing.
They're all here. And it's such a beautiful space to shatter all of them. It's like, let's just get rid of all of them, because you don't need that unless they're serving. If they're serving, amazing. If they're working for you and they're making your life better and you're moving towards your highest and greatest expression, amazing. But most often it's not that. Most often it's the exact opposite. Those beliefs and those ways of being are just totally blocking them. So yes. And it's so interesting that recently is what has been coming to me with sharing. And that's another example. It's like in the beginning of this journey, I would never have talked about those things. And I didn't even know, like 10 years ago, I didn't know what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if someone was not in resonance with that truth, they could tell you, and that's fine, right? Like you just said, take what's yours, leave what's not, let's go.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's amazing, the whole journey.
I feel like a definite lineage can be around shame and guilt. Yes. And even maybe if a person's parents have passed on disappointment or still carrying someone else's voice within your mind, someone else's internalized voice. So I was laughing before because I'm thinking like, oh, Jen, when you're sitting in a room with two people, actually, like with Ancestry, like how many people are actually in the room? Exactly. Then we're gonna act kindly with blessings. Just let it be our space. But you're really teaching your clients to and modeling that personal empowerment. And I love that, because you and I touched upon that discovery of what is your truth. Yes. And every single one of us in this lifetime is on that path. That's not a differentiating. It's not for some and not for others. It's for all of us. Yeah. So I think that's
I love that. Yeah. And that's what I share in the Solace space too, is that journey of self, is living authentically. And that's why I love what I do there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is the authenticity part. It's the soul of the practice. It's like it's almost like giving people permission who maybe are in those programs with the lineage and with the systems. And maybe they've been told that they can speak their truth, but not their whole truth. Like, we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, and we don't really have to say the whole thing. But at Solace in the space, it's like, no, you speak your truth. It's yours. There is nothing wrong with speaking your truth. And we speak it with kindness and mindfulness and respect. But it's such a beautiful gift when people speak their truth, because as you and I, what we're teaching people and sharing, it's like when people speak their truth, the other person or whoever is there, it's meant for them for whatever reason. The person speaking is just serving as a mirror for them. And so that's the only way that we complete our soul contracts with one another, is when we are living in our authentic space, when we are being authentic in every single area of our lives. Yeah. And it's who you are, and then you recognize that some people are going to resonate with it. Amazing. And some people won't. And when people don't, I think that's another program, oh, if I say this or do this, I'm going to be a bad person, or they're not going to like me, or I'm going to make them. It's like, it has nothing to do with you. What anyone else's response is has nothing to do with you. And if people fall off, or experiences fall off in your life, that's amazing. Then you just release them with love, and you're opening up space for new. There's just so much power in all of this, what we're talking
Yes.
about. And in sharing it with other people, and people going through a divorce, I think a lot of them it's probably the first time they've heard a lot of these things. And I think for people that have children, they're so terrified that their kids are going to be screwed up from divorce. And of course, you think of the system, you think of the way that it's done in there, and it's pitting these parents against each other, and the children are in the middle oftentimes.
Right.
So of course, that's a byproduct of that. But it doesn't need to be. And I always think about it and share with my clients, how amazing for your children to have two parents that they chose, for all the reasons that they did, but to have two parents that are living authentically. And not only living authentically, like following their own unique path and making the hard decisions that and I know it takes to live this path, but they're watching them do it. And it's like, well, how empowering for the next generation of children and the generation after to grow up in households where they have, or in a family. And that's the other thing. Family doesn't have to be so defined as like people living in the same home. You can have a family without children. You can have a family living in different households. You can have relationships with people. There's so many different types of relationships and so many forms of love. It's a very liberating space, I feel, to just shift out of that. And I feel like that's the work that you and I both do. I feel like we offer a space for people to shift out of that and to feel what it feels like in this sacred container. But then they're also given tips and tools and resources that they can use to continue the practice in their life outside. And like what you shared earlier, which resonated so strongly, the commitment. I think that is just such a powerful place to be.
It is. And I love everything you just shared. It makes me think about how in a former consciousness, which we're being invited to move out of, it was largely about separation, and divorce was looked at as separation, being separate from another entity. But at the same time, we're at a point in time where we are being invited to come into union or oneness with ourselves. And what if on that journey where we are so deeply, again, committed to the union within ourselves of all of our parts that have been separate or we held as separate, we're coming back into wholeness. And so why would it be anything other than a new iteration of your family could be viewed as still whole? That can seem maybe far out. I know it's not to you, but it's truth, and it's perspective, and it's it's the language we choose, and the openness in our hearts, and so many aspects that don't make any part of anything wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really embracing that we get one shot at this life. And it's meant to be enjoyed. Like we're here, we can eat all the delicious food and have the relationships and feel the emotions, and we're learning constantly. It's like we have one go at it. You know what I mean? So why not? Like the two questions I always ask my clients: what if you really could live this way? What if you really could create the family that you desire moving forward without the shame, without the anger, without the frustration, without the disappointment? What if you could just flow and shift into another space and create that space the way that you want to? What if you could do that? And then the second question I always follow up with is, why not? You're living anyway. So why not make it the way that you want to make it? And why not enjoy this journey and give yourself permission to enjoy it?
Yeah, I was wondering what some of those mantras or guiding posts were. So thank you for sharing that. There's such seemingly simple questions, but they're so open, and they hold potential and possibilities, infinite numbers of them right there.
Yes.
Only for the person you're asking the question to.
Yes.
And then a light bulb goes off, and the process that you're describing just in this conversation today of moving from the darkness to the light. There's
Yes.
so much light here. I
Yeah.
always say, if anyone's watching on YouTube, even your background with the lotus flowers being so bright and beautiful, and a reminder that we do what grows in the muck, what
Yes.
grows into just a big, beautiful blossom.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's the thing too, is the darkness to the light is, and again, I just keep saying, as you know, because you're living this path too. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of people who know the language, know the ways of being. They've studied a lot of books and maybe done a lot of retreats, and they know what to share, but they're the people who are actually living it, who
Mhm.
are applying it to their own life, which I know you are doing that. I am doing that. Going from the dark to the light,
Mhm.
it's continual. It's not like it's going to happen one time. Like you're going to get a divorce and this is going to be the darkest time of your life. And then you're going to go into light and you're never going to go in the darkness.
Mhm.
And there's constant dark nights of the soul. There's constant shatterings of self and I call it a shattering of self when it's like things present in your life and all of a sudden you realize, oh, wait a minute, like everything that I thought it was, like
Totally. Yeah.
the way that I thought things were with like relationships, friendships, work, the world, whatever it might be, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, it wasn't that at all. That was just like
Mhm.
maybe my way of thinking that it was, but all of a sudden it's not. And it's the shattering and the shattering I feel is the ego. I think we're continually shattering the ego because the ego is here just to keep us real safe. But you've always been this way. It's always been okay. You know what I mean? And the shatterings are like, no, this isn't real. Like this, what I thought it was isn't.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
that's the journey, is the lotus journey. It is. It's like being in the muck, or the phoenix is a great parallel too. It's like being in the muck, being in this darkness, and then doing everything you can to get up to the light. And
Mhm.
that's at Solace, the heart of the practice is children, because my kids changed. That's the Solace is here because of my children. And
Mhm.
I don't want children, one child anywhere to be negatively impacted by divorce, because it's not
Yeah.
necessary and it's gross. But the foundation of the practice is self-care and self-love,
Mhm.
because of what we're talking about. Because when you are in those dark times, you
Mhm.
need to be selfish. And that's another shattering that we
Oh,
do. So
totally.
it's like the whole concept of being selfish. People think that's bad. And people in my life, when they tell me, family especially, you're so selfish, I now thank them. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
recognizing that I
Yes.
put myself first, because I have to. If
You
I don't
have
put
to.
myself first, how am I going to give to everyone at the level that I wish to give?
Putting yourself first is just that self-appreciation and the holding of all of you, and unconditional love for yourself. And that's only going to be a beautiful byproduct for everyone around. For anyone who's gone through the journey of completing a divorce or is looking at it, what would you tell them if they have children, about just ways to hold that in their mind? Or what comes to you as the most important sort of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for anyone anywhere who is going through a divorce, I think first and foremost, it's happening exactly when it's meant to, exactly as it's meant to. It's presenting in your life for that. Like, I'm not a therapist, but I have lots of therapist friends. And as they say, it is one of the most emotionally difficult experiences
Mm,
of your life. And of course, the way I've trained my mind is, ooh, it's going to be a difficult space, but that also means that it's one of the greatest opportunities for growth. If it's, and the message that came through for me this year was, the only way out is through. And I would share that with them too. The only way out of it is through, and it's through you. It's through you feeling all of the feelings and giving yourself space to feel those things, and also giving yourself space, like when children are involved, to not be responsible for your children, to give yourself that time and space to do whatever it is you need to do. Like if you
mm.
need to scream all day, scream all day. If you need to cry all day, like whatever you need to do, just give that to yourself. I would just recommend anyone who's going through a divorce, just love yourself. And I
Mhm.
think out of the darkness, like the lotus of
Mhm.
divorce, like
Mhm.
out of that muck, out of that darkness, when you go through it and you feel it and it's mindful, it's an intentional journey of going through this divorce and really releasing all of the things that you believe to be true about marriage, about being a mother or a father or whatever roles you play, it's these deep shatterings of no one who gets married thinks they're going to get a divorce,
Right.
including myself.
Mhm.
You don't think you're going to get a divorce when you get married. And so when you go through that space, it is so dark and it is
Yeah.
incredibly lonely. You can
Mhm.
talk, to your blue in the face to every single person, but no one is going to understand what you're going through the way
Mhm.
that you do. And I think those are the byproducts of divorce. I think
Yeah.
self-love is one of the most beautiful byproducts of divorce. Recognizing you are the only person who can give yourself happiness. You are the only person who can give yourself love in the way that you need and desire. And of course, you can get these from, it can be added from other
Yeah.
people. Just having that self-respect and trust, I think that's a byproduct. And you come out of the divorce journey and you will be different. You will be a different person. You will be stronger. You'll be more aligned with yourself. You'll have different boundaries in place. For anyone going out, anyone out there going through divorce with children, it does not need, or without children, but
Mhm.
my heart is always feels very strongly tuned into the couples who have children because there's so much fear that's been programmed in them of like, you're going to destroy you're going to lose your kids. You're never going to see your kids are going to hate you. You're going to hate your
Yeah.
spouse. None of that is true. That's, that's
Mhm.
what I share.
Mhm.
None of it
Mhm.
is true. You don't have to do it the way that, millions of people have done it in the past. Just because they've done it that way and
Yep.
they've experienced destruction doesn't mean that you need to do that too. And it can be a very mindful
Mm.
journey where your kids are brought into it. And I think that's another space too, for parents going through a divorce is recognizing that your children did choose you to be their
Yeah.
parents for all of the reasons they knew that this was going to happen. And
Mm.
I think divorce is a really rich space for parents to be vulnerable with their children, as opposed to like feeling, again, like the programs, like parents are here, children are here, children should be seen and not heard. It's a
Yeah. Right.
beautiful space
Yes.
to just, we are
Yes.
all journeying together. We are
Mhm.
all learning from each other. We are all growing from each other. We are all doing this shift into a
Mhm.
different space together. And it is going to be amazing. It's not going to have that
Yeah.
over here.
And I'm really feeling, as you talk about that, part of my training has been in soul psychology, soul care coaching, but also in conscious parenting. And what I'm seeing is because I know you hold a big vision here in
Mhm.
terms of not only where your business is going and how it will grow and who it can reach, but the synergy of different newer paradigms that are coming together. So, where before maybe it was conscious parenting was over here and your work on divorce was over here, and everyone was sort of siloed, but
Yeah.
there's I think you told me about a vision you had with pink bubbles. And so it kind of reminds me of that. It's the merging of these energies and the beauty of more and more people stepping into the work that they are here to do
Oh,
because humanity needs us now. And I followed a thread with Mystical Sisterhood. I didn't know what the heck, and here we are, right?
mhm. Yes.
And I can't even believe the ripple effect of that. But I think it's a beautiful holding and recognition we can have for, wow, let's be in wonder and awe about that.
Yes. And I
Yes.
love that you just said that because
Mhm.
that's what I coach my clients too. Just exactly what you said. Every single person has like your calling that you listened to and followed, and my calling that I've listened to and followed. And who knows where else we're going to be directed to go, Maureen. I just feel like this is like the
Yes.
beginning space, but how beautiful. Like every single person has that within themselves.
Mhm.
Everyone has the life purpose. Everyone has something that they
Yes.
came here to
Mhm.
do and share. And when they share it with the world, it makes other human life better. So I
Mhm.
love that you just said that because I often tune into that. And I think that is what the fifth
So
dimension
good.
is. I do feel
Mm.
that is the shift in consciousness that is happening is it's people living in alignment. It's
Mhm.
people getting rid of the programs and which is
Mhm.
something.
Yes.
It's not,
Yes.
it's not just I'm going to get rid of a program today,
Mhm. Right.
something.
Right. Yeah.
But
You
I
can,
do
yeah.
believe that everyone is going to shift into being in this space. And I don't think it's going to take very long. And I don't think that it's difficult, overly
Mhm.
difficult. I think
Mhm.
it just,
No.
all it requires is people to like
Mhm.
people listening to this who
Mhm.
may be like, wait a minute, what is my
Yeah.
life purpose? And it's just think about what you enjoy doing. Think of
Mhm.
what you did as a child that you really liked, or
Yeah.
think of what you enjoy doing now. What could you do all day, every day? And it's not work. It's just what you love to do. And that's your thing. You just get on that path of, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to figure it out. And then I think that's part of
Mhm.
being open as
Mhm.
well, open to messages and guidance received from, the
Absolutely.
ether, your angels,
Absolutely.
masters, guides, ancestors, like they're all here. They're all
Mhm.
guiding us.
Yeah.
We're always being guided. We're always being shown signs in the
Yeah.
form of numbers or
Yes.
animal. And I'm at the point in my space where it's, you know what? I no longer care if it's true
Mhm.
or false. I don't
Mhm.
care. And I don't know why it even matters, because in my world, there is no right, wrong, good, or bad. So
No.
to
Yeah.
me, it's just like, it makes my life magical and fun. And I love it.
Well,
And
and
I
if it's
feel
yeah.
guided and
Mhm.
held.
And if it's true for you, it's true.
And it's true.
Then
Exactly.
it's true. So
Exactly.
we're rounding out, and I just had this visual I have to share is like, and it feels like masses, where masses of people are being invited to come forward and show themselves and show their their true essence and their authenticity, and just this idea of people raising their hands and saying, yes, I accept. And it's
Yeah.
just so beautiful. And then I wanted to make sure, because you obviously work with clients one-on-one or
Yes.
two-on-two families, but do you work across state lines? Where are you now? Do you work across state lines? And also, what other support do you offer for people in other forms?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can work any state. I can mediate. We now have a Divorce with Love Masterclass that I am so excited about. I'm just so excited to share it with the whole wide world, because it talks about the legal process of divorce, the emotional process of divorce, a lot of what you and I have been talking about, but just at a very like, and I referenced the fifth. It's like a very, I think, not very intimidating space for someone
Mhm.
who maybe has found themselves like deeply in the programs and wants to learn a little bit
Yeah.
more of
Mhm.
just a different way of looking at things. So that Divorce with Love Masterclass is for anyone, anywhere going through a divorce. And what my intention for that course is to really remove the smoke and mirrors from divorce. I
Okay.
want to
Mhm.
remove the fear from divorce, because when I went through my divorce, I was already a family law attorney for over a decade.
Mhm.
So for me, when I went through it, I'm like, oh, this isn't scary, because I know exactly what it is. And that's the intention for the
Okay.
course, is to provide people with that information so they are empowered, where
Mhm.
they don't have to feel scared or overwhelmed, or I must go into the courtroom and get a litigation attorney and it must cost me tens of thousands,
Wow.
hundreds of thousands of dollars, and my children must be negatively impacted. It's so good. It's 3 hours and 39 minutes, which
Beautiful.
of course, I love the numbers 339. It's just, I feel like it's 18 years of being a family law attorney,
Mhm.
of experience and sharing it with people.
Gorgeous.
And then it's the last decade of my own personal growth, Solace growth, narratives that I found resonate with people and that are easy, really nice starting place for people, which it doesn't scare them of, oh, I can't do this. But we can do a chakra balancing meditation. That's real easy. And I'm going to walk you through it, and then just go through and different narratives, different ways you can talk to your children about divorce,
Yes.
and different
Mhm.
ways you can see divorce. And I go through the 8-step healing process of Solace that starts with acceptance and release. And then it ends with gratitude and manifesting, using all of these nuggets of amazingness that you receive in this dark space, that I feel like just are like seeds that are just, now you have all these seeds, and using them when you get out into the light, when you're back in that light, and now they're going to bloom. And what life do you want to create? And closing that chapter with love and with
Mhm.
gratitude and with mindfulness, that you wouldn't be the person you are today without having been in that relationship, and really
Absolutely.
giving people space to think about things differently. I think divorce, when it's done mindfully, is just such an amazing opportunity for growth. So I'm really excited about the course. I'm really excited that it's easy for
Mm.
people to just watch it. They can watch it on their own time. and they can rewatch it. I have a 72-page workbook that goes along with it that
Amazing. Yeah.
can help them, just because I don't think a lot of people journal. I love journaling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I want to say, as we close, just thank you for heeding the call that came to you so you could step into those shoes that were waiting for you, that were predestined, they were pre-written, and you really stayed true to what you knew to be, your path forward. And it's inspiring. And I think this episode is going to be really supportive for so many people for so many reasons. I always say, if you look at the title of an episode, this may or may not seem like it's for you, but it's all for you, because
Yes.
every part of our conversation today is about life. And we
Yes.
are all living in this life where it's not always easy and there were no guarantees, but there can be beauty even in the places we've held as darker or feel darker. So I just am grateful for you and being with us today.
Mm.
Thank you to the listeners. Is there any parting words that you'd like to share as
I
we
just want to
sign
thank
off?
you for following your calling too,
Mhm.
and I want to thank Ty, and I just want to thank the divine for having our paths cross again and
Yeah,
connect when they did.
so exciting.
I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, and I'm grateful that
Uh,
you're sharing this and you're feeling called to share this,
yeah.
and what you're doing with the show. And I'm
Mhm.
grateful you invited me here and that we were able to talk about this. Like, I just hold so much gratitude and love for you and the work that you're
Thank
doing,
you.
and the work and I do feel the time is now. Like, we just need to shine our light really bright.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah,
It is our time.
it is our
We've
time.
waited a long time. It is our time.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you to the listeners. We'll see you in the next episode, and thank you, Jen. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit maureenspielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode.